Hello, hello. Welcome to the Kensington Corner. I am Jeff.
And I am Tom. How's everyone doing today? Today we are graciously and humbly welcoming Matt McCoy from the Headstrong Project. Matt, I'm already going to mess up but I'm going to call you creative director. We'll go with that because that's what I call myself. So how you doing today, man?
That works. It's good. Thank you guys. You guys are too kind with that intro. We just appreciate coming on, and we're glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So, just for our audience alone, we've kind of started pushing into this veteran focus, which we didn't even know if that's what we were actually going to be, man. We started out as like a general podcast that kind of went into some health and kind of went into like mental health a little bit. Our first episode was on dealing with depression, anxiety, and overall stress and things like that. And we've kind of started going in this veteran focus kind of direction. We had Jason Kander on last week or a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And you know Jason, and so that was really cool. And we've done a couple with
we did Stephanie Davis. She's at the East Kansas VA. She's their suicide prevention coordinator. She's amazing. She's just absolutely phenomenal, and she's kind of got us hooked in with some new stuff around our area, and it's been funny because we kind of just stumbled almost into the whole veteran side of things, which I mean, obviously
with our backgrounds
is probably the most natural way to go. But so here we are. We're sitting here with you this morning, and we don't have anything.
What's great is that how many people are getting on board with this movement?
Yes.
We recently for Veterans Day, or maybe it's Giving Tuesday. We had Congressman Moulton tweeting out about us and what we do. And then, I sat down and had conversations with Tulsi Gabbard, and she is very well aware of what we do. And so, we're really starting to see like people, especially politically, start to get involved with what we're doing and have a good grasp and understanding of what we're doing and how we could complement the VA. So it's been really cool to see, especially this past year, all the people who are kind of jumping on board and really coming to find out about Headstrong.
And for our viewers, man, can you just expand on actually what you guys are doing and I guess what your creed and motto basically is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to keep it simple, our motto is really just we provide cost-free, stigma-free, bureaucracy-free mental health treatment for those in need. And really, essentially what we do is we fill the gaps in the market, and by putting a therapist and a veteran in need together, and we make it a seamless process. So it's the veteran will call in, and we'll do an intake with them, and then we will make sure that they get in to see a psychiatrist, and then that psychiatrist, once they sign off, then we will link them with a therapist that is relatively close in proximity to where they are, and then they can start treatment once a week, cost-free. They don't have to pay anything. They don't have to do anything other than show up. So it's really just a plug and play type thing with these markets that we're going into. We're about to go now. I'll announce this right now. We're about to go into Phoenix and Dallas next year. We'll be adding those to the cities that we're already in, cities and states. So we're really just expanding and broadening what we do because it works so well. We just had a meeting recently, and we got back some of the feedback from veterans in the program, and 99% said that they would recommend what we do to friends. And I think that's the biggest compliment that you can receive, because that means that it works. When people who are going through the program talk about the program and tell friends who are also in need to come in and check us out, I think that speaks volumes. So anyway, that's a lengthy answer to kind of deal with it.
You went through the program yourself, right?
I did, yeah. So I went through the program myself, and that's how I kind of found out about it. And so that's why I'm such a big advocate, and why I even came on board and wanted to work here, because of how much it helps, and how much people are getting better, including myself.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, especially the way Tom and I have been going with this podcast. We've dealt a lot with veterans organizations and just veterans themselves. And I think it's really fascinating to see some of the ways that veterans are really, really leading the way on kind of this way our society kind of treats mental illness now and mental health in general. And I think it's it's really phenomenal. And it's kind of interesting just because, I think that even 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't have thought, hey, this is an area where people coming out of the military are going to flourish from just because of the taboo nature of it. And the crazy thing is I feel like there's so many veterans out there that are really passionate about this. And I think it's for the exact same reason you said, that we've been through these things ourselves and we've seen how well these processes work. And it's just like, it's one of those things like, when you've been through it, you just become the biggest advocate for it.
Yeah. And not only that, but I mean, also there's such a need for what we're doing because of the statistics that are out there in terms of, I mean, really you can call it an epidemic of what's going on with suicide. Yeah. There's the statistic that the VA put out last year is 20 to 22 veterans take their lives a day. I guess that's including active duty, but right. That's an inordinate amount of people. And it's really jaw-dropping when you hear that kind of stuff. And so when you hear that, I mean, you understand the need for an organization like Headstrong, what we're doing, because this is necessary and it's it's life-changing therapy that we're able to provide people at a time of need in their life. People are coming to us when they're at their most broken. So the fact that we're able to really help them in their time of need. I think that's why you have these people that are willing to speak out and are willing to go to bat for us and tell friends about us because, we help them at their lowest point.
Yeah. When Jeff and I put out our first episode, we actually started this as like a creative outlet kind of thing. Just like, just doing shit for fun, man, to be honest. And, it was funny. I was telling him, we dropped the first 6 episodes together, but we put out our episode 1 on like SoundCloud, just as like not edited anything, no intro music, just like complete raw. Like, here you go, check it out. Let us know what you kind of think, kind of thing. And we were getting messages from people that were like, hey man, I'm like super suicidal. And just knowing that you and Jeff go through like depression and anxiety too, and knowing who you guys are and you're able to come out and talk about it, it helped me so much. Like just being able to relate with you, because I would have never thought you were a type of person that goes through that kind of things. And I was like, man, it's the whole don't judge a book by the cover kind of thing. People think that Jeff and I don't have our own issues, and God, we 100% do. We're probably worse off than most people.
Right. No, well, I mean, and it's in what you were even kind of alluded to earlier is like the stigma also. Like there's still that stigma where people don't want to speak out because they're talking about or feeling these hidden wounds of war that they've gone through or what have you. So, it's this, people are just reluctant to really want to talk about this stuff. So the more that we have people like you or some of these people like Kevin Love, even though he's not in the military, but he's just he's normalizing it for people to understand that, everybody goes through certain bouts of depression or anxiety or, some of these other things that people deal with on the daily. So, it just normalizes it, makes people feel like, okay, well, hey, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's absolutely about that, normalizing it. And then I also think of it as almost like, especially we were talking about Jason Kander, kind of right before we started the podcast, and it's really a leadership thing. It's showing people how you do it and being unashamed of the fact that, you're seeking that help. And because that's, that's one of the biggest life lessons you can learn is, being your own advocate and, and being able to, to take those steps, even though you maybe, I guess, fearful of the process. I know I was when I went to outpatient therapy for about a month. And I was so resistant when I first went in, but like, man, I came out on the other side of that process and I was like, this is worth telling the world about, like what happened for me personally. I mean, and I feel like I was very lucky because I kind of had a very quick turnaround with it. Things like started clicking, and and I know that that's not the case for everyone. You know, some people's paths with their mental health is a much longer and more difficult course than I took. But you know, it's still, it can be done. You know.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing too. Is you just brought that up, actually, is the fact that with especially with our program, is that we don't cap the number of sessions that people, you know, it's for as long as you need it, right? So, you know, there's a lot of other organizations. I'm not sitting here trying to say that they don't do good work or anything like that. It's just, you know, you can't tell somebody how long it's going to take them to get better.
Exactly.
Right? You can't say, well, here's 10 free sessions. Like, okay, well, what happened?
What happens if I need 20, right? Like, or I need 30, or I need it for the rest of my life. Yeah, no,
Exactly. So it's like, you know, an organization like ours, I think that's why there's so many unique identifiers about our program and what we do, because we really are we're here for what people need, and we're here to help people in need. So like, we don't want to cap these things, and we want to make it as easy as process, take out all the red tape, right? So like, you know, that's the thing with when I say fill the gaps earlier, there's, you know, BAs where people have to drive 2-3 hours,
right?
And that's gonna make people less willing to go and receive help whenever they're like, okay, well, I have to drive 2 or 3 hours just to get an appointment. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we match people up with these therapists within their proximity, like, it's one of those things that just we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to get care. So really, all a veteran has to do is just come in and just make their appointment once a week. You know, so if you're really at the point that you feel like you want to get better, and we find that when people come to us, that is the case, then we just want to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah. Now, can I ask you a little bit more about like just the history, I guess, of the Headstrong Project? Like, how long have you guys been active now? And yeah, I mean, that's
yeah, that's really the unique thing in the it allowed people to understand too why we do what we do. So just to give you guys a brief history, 2012 was the inception of Headstrong, and it came off the back really of our former executive director and now board chairman, Zachary Iskel. And Zach was a Marine. He was over in Fallujah and went through all the chaos that Fallujah brought with that. And he lost a lot of Marines and friends over there. And, you know, it was, I want to say 32. And then he came back home, and after that battle, and started to notice that a lot of his friends and colleagues and people who had been over with him, fellow Marines, were really struggling once they got back home. And so then he started to notice that not only were they struggling, but, you know, there was a lot of suicide going on within his unit. So, you know, he was like, got to a point where he started seeing, he ended up having more people die by suicide in his unit than that died in Fallujah. And that was one of the bloodiest battles, you know, that we faced in this war. So that speaks to the epidemic that I was referring to earlier in terms of the problem that we're facing with suicide. When you have an entire platoon not only take the casualties that they did overseas, but then come home and deal with, you know, the mental health aspect of things, and, you know, ultimately the things that they went through over here and gave their life. So it's tough. And he noticed that there's a problem. He said, you know what, I want to do something about it. So he reached out to Dr. Beater and Gerard Ilaria, our lead clinician. And he's like, look, I want to do something about this. And he's like, you know, I just don't understand why, you know, in business, if somebody has a problem, they can go get help. Like, but for a veteran, it's you can't just go and see the most world-class living therapist. He's like, it's a lot harder for them to get the care that they need. So he's like, I really want to do something about this. So together and in partnership with Will Cornell, we formed Headstrong in 2012. So, you know, now we've been doing this for 7 years. We've really expanded over the last 4 years quite a bit. And like I said earlier, we're in 25 cities, 11 states, not including Dallas and Phoenix, which I mentioned earlier. So we're continuing to rapidly expand, but because there's that need.
Well, yeah, even the last 12 to 24 months for you guys, social media wise, has been huge. You guys have been shared in a lot of stuff. And then I think that the actual stories that you guys are posting on the like Instagram and stuff are actually starting to get out to people, because for a while, it was just, I would see it every now and then, but now I'm seeing a lot of veterans that like I was in combat with who are starting to share your guys' stories on like Instagram or like, or share one of your guys' posts and stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, so that, I guess for me, I had not realized that it had taken off that much, outside looking in, I did not realize. And you guys are like actually a pretty big deal now.
Right. Yeah, no. And I think that's been my main focus, is like collaborating with brands and individuals who better tell our story and want to get involved and help what we do. And so that's really been my main focus within the organization, is just to tell those stories of veterans and people who are struggling, because it is, I want to normalize it. I want people to understand that this isn't just a one thing for people who have PTSD, or, it's just specific or to a certain group. Like, this is something that everybody deals with. So yeah, that was one of the biggest things with the stories and some of the videos and stuff that I've been putting out, with like, in terms of like wanting people to understand that this is a normal thing that a lot of people go through.
Yeah. And that the marketing aspect of it is so important. I mean, like, you get down to the core of it, like what your organizations are doing is without a doubt the most important part of it. Right. But just having that, that good marketing associated with it. Like, I know, like, that's the one thing Tom does an excellent job of that for us, with just networking with people. And like, that's so key to just getting that traction and then getting that message out there, and which is kind of a shame, because I'm sure there's, probably dozens, if not hundreds of organizations out there that are doing great stuff. But they're just not finding a way to effectively get their message out there and be seen and heard. And so, I commend you guys. It's been pretty cool watching what y'all have done.
And we appreciate that. And honestly, though, I think really this just speaks to what we do. This all started with word of mouth, right? So a lot of this stuff that we were doing and how people were hearing about us was through word of mouth. And now we're starting to get all these people on board that are really talking about us and helping us spread the word. And I think that's why you're starting to see some of this growth, because we have these people who are speaking out, or people who want to go to bat for us, and some cool things that are coming up, like in terms of companies, like I said, and people. We're actually going to be on Price is Right December 22nd.
All right. I know what I'm doing now.
So the way that came about, though, was like kind of cool. So, there was a guy who had been in Team 6, and I connected with him. And, now he's on the show, SEAL Team, and he's an advisor for them on the show. And so CBS was looking for a partner and a beneficiary for them when they go on the Price is Right show. And so we kind of connected, and, he said, we'd love to work with you guys and have you guys as a beneficiary. So I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So it's just, what I mean? Like, it's just unique, kind of different stuff like that is really, I think, not only is there a monetary element to it, but then there's also that national media exposure element to it. And I think that's really, what I was referring to earlier when I said, like, my focus is really trying to go to where we're branching out. We're not just internally talking or having people internally talk about us. Now we're having other people, other organizations, other individuals speak out on our behalf.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing too, is results speak for themselves. And obviously you guys are doing such a good job that you're getting the word out there. When we did the podcast with Jason, that was like, I think I actually said it on air. I believe so. But I was like, Headstrong Project's that's like my number one, right? Like, that's who I want. I've been talking about you guys for probably half a year now,
yes.
about half a year.
Literally since we started.
I mean, we started on May 29th. So about 7 months, and you guys were like my number one. I was like, this is where we need it.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that helps, is when you have like local podcasts, local organizations, and people who are passionate and care about what we do. And so, like, that's where I want to say, or that I'm the most appreciative, is the people who go to bat for us. And, the celebrities and the people who speak out. Look, that is so much appreciated, but really this is the grassroots organization, and we were built off of like the everyday person, the grassroots of it, speaking out about what we do and telling people about what we do. So I think that's where I'm like, so appreciative of.
Absolutely. So another thing I'm curious about is, so do you guys, the demographics of the folks you have coming through your doors? I mean, is it kind of, are you talking more of a younger, like, say, 20 to 40 age? Do you also have, are you also getting traction with, like, say older veterans and that sort of thing?
And,
yeah. I think, look, I'm just being completely honest. It is a younger demographic, but I think primarily the reason that we see that is because they're more willing to admit that they need help.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Or they want to get help. Whereas the older generation, maybe, they're still not so much. I mean, they're kind of stigma, really, is what it is. Of you don't speak out, kind of suppress it, deal with it on your own. And so I think that's probably why we have a younger demographic. But also too, because we didn't start out as just a post 9/11 organization where we help post 9/11 vets. Whereas now we've kind of expanded and we're helping a lot of different vets from a lot of different wars. So I think, but primarily, it is a younger base, and I think that is really associated and can be contributed to them just being more familiar. With the whole process and more understanding and willing to speak out.
Well, do you mind? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that's another thing in my mind that, especially with the older generation of veterans, is they obviously they don't communicate quite in the same way we do. They're much harder to reach, I think, in the traditional ways we think of, like, reaching out to people as far as social media. They're not quite as plugged in there. So I do think that they are a more difficult demographic to reach just in general in our day and age. But I'm just curious because, we were talking a little bit about the Veterans Community Project here in Kansas City, and a lot of those folks are older folks from what I understand. Yeah. But it's kind of a little different situation. And I'm always curious.
I think it's also too, though, like, I think you're also too, like, they just go about it in different ways.
That's true.
That's true too.
Like, they're going to these, like these meetings together. What are those things called where they all get
it's not Alcoholics Anonymous,
but it might be.
It might be one of them as well. It's like Veterans Anonymous.
Yeah, Veterans Anonymous. Yeah.
But one of our mentors is a Vietnam vet, and what he ended up doing. And the thing is too is that I think people try to find the best way they can to help in a way. But he started a veterans writing club.
Yeah.
So they get together and write and stuff. But I think that it's I think people for a long time tried to do the best they could with what they had. And that was the hardest part, because my dad was 42 when I was born. He's a Vietnam vet. But I mean, he turned 73 this past August, and he just now started getting help at the VA.
Yeah.
On his own accord, he got back from Vietnam and was like, I'll never trust the government again. I don't want anything to do with them. And then at 73 now, he's like, I think I'm going to get some yoga and do some physical therapy and maybe talk to some people. And I'm like, well, okay, dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's filling in the gap. So is when you realize, hey, talking to my friends is good. Going over stuff with my battle buddies and all that's good, right? That's productive. That helps. However, there's a professional element to it where, you need to do things that are maybe a little different than that, in terms of, like, professionally getting, like, help through licensed therapists who can really help guide you and help you understand why you feel what you feel, can help you kind of get past some of those mental blocks and really explore some of the stuff that you're going through. So I think that's key in terms of, like, really getting better when you realize that, like, there's a certain, reaching out and talking to friends can only go so far.
Right.
Or, running or doing all this stuff. Like, there is an element of therapy that is a higher quality that is provided and available, and it's okay to ask or go and use that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think Tom and I can both relate to that, because actually when I kind of first got to know Tom and kind of how this podcast got going in the first place was we would just get together in the morning and have coffee before we went to class. And, not to say too much, but, Tom was really going through some stuff, and, I'd had some experience going through therapy already, and I was very much, big advocate for him. Like, hey man, I love sitting here and listening to what you're saying, but I'm limited in what I can do, and you need a professional to take that next step, and I think that's another thing that we as lay people need to be aware of is, yes, that there is benefit you can provide to just be there to listen. But, at the same time, you also need to be ready to encourage them, to take the next steps in their journey, essentially.
Right. And there's also the science element to it. Right. Yeah. So like we do a multitude of different modalities that we use to help people get better. But one specifically that we use is called EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and realization. And so, we use those modalities because they're scientifically based, right? So like it helps people process these feelings, these thoughts that they have, and get past these. So it's no longer, somebody described it one time to me, it's almost like a scar, right? So it doesn't mean that what happened didn't happen, you completely forget about it. Like, it just means that you now process it and you're able to move past it mentally.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like physically when you have a scar, you can still see where that happened, but you're able to understand that it's something from the past and it's no longer with you.
Yeah. I will say another thing, at least from my experience, is, obviously working through the things you need to work through. I mean, can be a very, very painful experience, but I've found, now that I'm about, actually, I think I'm about 3 years out from my, my the major therapy kind of, starting my mental health journey. And like, I finally feel like I think this year has really been the year. Like, I feel like I'm comfortable talking about it. I feel like I can draw wisdom kind of from what was really a terrible experience. I wouldn't want to go through that ever again if I didn't have to, but it's kind of like accepting the fact that, hey, this was my journey. And now, like I said, being able to talk, candidly about it and kind of understanding the process, the trip was bad, but what came out of it is good. And I'm a better person coming out on the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's ultimately the goal, right? Is to get to a point where you can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I think has been really awesome to what you alluded to earlier, the stories, is that when you get to the place that you feel comfortable enough to, start to tell your story and speak out and tell people about some of the stuff that you've been through, because that ultimately helps other people.
Well, and that's what I was going to say too, that's been the most inspirational part for mine, at least, is that, if you obviously you don't know me personally, but if you knew me personally, a lot of people don't think that I had any depression or anxiety issues. Like, if you met me, you'd be like, oh, I'm the typical, I wouldn't say douchebag. I'm typical. You're a douchebag. I'm a douchebag. But I'm type A. Like, I just am. And so like when I did the first episode and everything, a lot of my former soldiers were texting me and were like, "What are you talking about?" Like, and I'm like, yeah, man. I'm going through some stuff. And it was just like so mind blowing for them, because they saw me as more of like a father figure, older brother figure to them. And for me to be going through some stuff, I think it made it easier on them to be like, oh, wow, I can talk to him about this, or, oh, wow, like he now feels more human to me in a way, we have a connection there.
And also too, I mean, listen, as somebody who grew up in the Midwest, I think it's different in certain pockets of the United States than it is in others. So I say that because, like, out here in New York, it's more normalized to go to therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe people have two therapists, or the dog has a therapist. Like, people understand it a little bit better. Whereas, like, in the Midwest, where I'm from, people, it's kind of more on the hush, and it goes back to that stigma, or like people just don't understand it, or whatever it is. Like, it's not as normalized or understood. So, if I was to speak out and do the same thing, to my friends back home, I think they'd probably have it. They'd be like, "Oh, really? Like, you've gone through that?" Or like they'd be more taken aback, or maybe not understand like what I've gone through, because it's just where we're from. It's not as prevalent to speak out on this issue.
Well, And, you know, it's the same thing with the military too, man. For a while, for years, people didn't talk about it because it was honestly affecting promotions. Like there were guys at E6 looking at going to E7 and you know, obviously it can't actually come up, but once that gets put up, or like once you go to a board and they know that you're on medication or you got some mental health issues or something like that, they're like, yeah, nah, man, like it's kind of like a blackball list almost. It was really weird. So no one talked about it.
I alluded to that earlier a little bit about like making sure that leadership is getting on board, and I think that's where we're really starting to see some of it coming. Is that now leadership recognizing and understanding that this is a real problem. And you know, we had General Dunford, the Joint Chief of Chairman, speak out at our gala this past year, and just to hear him talk about it, you could tell that like he's really understands it. He's recognizing this is an issue, and so you know, now that you start to have some of these people in leadership positions come out and speak about it, I think it's yet again just helping to normalize it even more.
Yeah, and the amount of people you guys had come out to that gala too was insane. Like.
Yeah, that was our biggest gala ever. You know, we had I think 900 people.
Yeah,
wow.
Supporters, from all across like the United States come out. And so, you know, that's one thing that we feel like we do really well is like these galas and organizing people together to kind of really spread the word about not only what we're doing but just mental health in general. So, you know, we have that. Really, that was our 8th annual gala here in New York City, but now we're starting to expand and even do those elsewhere. So, you know, we have one in Washington, D.C. next year. That'll be our second one. We have one in San Francisco, which will be our second one. And we're going to have something in Phoenix as well next year when we open. So, you know, all this is really just, it's crucial in letting people know, because not only about why it's important what we do, but also like hear the stories from people who have gone through the program and people who have really dealt with it, because that's the hardest part. Is there's a privacy concern and issue that goes with therapy.
Right.
And so, you know, it's hard sometimes to tell these stories or get people to come forward, because you want to respect people's privacy and you don't want to make people divulge anything that they don't feel comfortable doing. But, you know, luckily we've had some people that have gone through our program, a lot of people who've been willing to speak out. And so when you go to these galas and stuff like that, you're able to hear these stories and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is why we're giving money to this organization.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to get up there, especially if you're at a very public event like that and share that story. I remember we were at the PTSD symposium for the East Kansas VA about probably 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And they had a gentleman get up there and share his story. And I mean, it was like, it was so moving, like from my side, you could tell just how emotionally charged it was for him and difficult in some ways for him to be up there. But I mean, there's a lot of very raw power when you to having people share like that, if they're willing to do it. I think it's so strong.
100%. And you know, I'm the person that actually does a lot of the interviews for the Facing Stigma series that we do.
Right.
And so I get to hear these stories, these powerful, impactful stories all the time. There's been times I've been moved to almost tears, because people talking about what they've been through, the struggle and that's gone along with that. And it's you know, it's moving to hear these stories, and it's impactful, and it just validates why I love being able to work with Headstrong and at an organization where we're doing something to help people deal with those things. So, you know, it is really, it's rewarding being able to do a lot of the stuff that I do here.
Absolutely.
So besides The Price is Right, what else do you guys got coming down the pipeline right now?
Yeah, and, you know, outside of that, like nationally, we're about to be on CBS. We're doing a profile on Zach and his story.
Nice.
The nightly news that'll be coming out next week. You know, and then we got The Price is Right at the end of the year, and then really going into this next year. You know, we got so much stuff coming up. Like I said, we have so many events. We're really trying to sit down and collaborate. And this is, like I said, this is what I do, and what I'm interested in doing is really collaborating with individuals and organizations. So next year I'll be sitting down with the Kevin Love Fund.
Nice.
about ways that we can work together. So I'm sure, we'll be able to find a common point, or where we can figure out some way to do some national campaign. We're working now with some teams with Arizona Cardinals recently. We went and saw them, and they want to start working with us. So really, I think we're going to start to pop up all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, is that, and Jeff and I were talking about this yesterday, was that, one of our big things is, we've been at this about 6 months now, and we're at close to 15,000 downloads overall. And the more we do things like this, obviously the more the word's going to get out. But our big thing too is that the cool thing that we like is that we're starting to kind of link organizations together that we support, so we have you guys coming on, we had the Veterans Community Project, we had the Green Beret Foundation coming on, and that was our big thing too, that I really liked with doing with you guys, that I really like that there are veterans actually out there helping other veterans and trying to put the foot forward. We were talking with VCP about it, and they're they're about to blow up nationally as well, as far as getting they got something popping up in Dallas, DC. They just went to New York last week.
5 cities, I think,
they're expanding
8 cities,
yeah,
something
they
like
got
that.
St. Louis coming up. Yep. And so I really feel like as much progress as veterans and veteran-based businesses and solutions have come in the past 10 years, I really think the next 5 years is going to be huge.
I completely agree with that. And the other thing is I look at it not only from the fact that, we're, this service is going forward with veterans in mind. I mean, but we're really providing you guys, your organizations like you are really providing the model, not only for veterans and military and, active duty military, but also for just our society as a whole, that we're opening up that conversation. And it goes, it right now, the focus is there, but it goes well beyond the bounds of just that group of people. I feel like.
I agree.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what you start to see the military lead from the front a lot. And so we feel like our organization is so unique, the model and what we do and how we go about treating veterans, that it's really something that could be replicated amongst society in general. Because let's be honest, this mental health issue and crisis is not just solely relegated to veterans.
No, not at all.
It's something that civilians can understand and go through as well. And so, really, our model is easily duplicated and replicated when you get down to the bare bones of it, in terms of what we do and how it works and how we help people. And, we think we've laid it out there in terms of this is the best way to treat veterans and people who are dealing with some of these issues that are, life threatening. So, I really think that the more people will come to find out about what we do and just continue to spread the word on mental health, that, the more that we're going to be able to end this epidemic of the suicide epidemic of these 20 to 22 veterans a day.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you raise another really good point there, that, the fact that, it in a lot of ways it is veterans, that are, taking the lead positions and kind of this, this deal is that there's kind of that military mindset that comes with it. And there's a lot of just strength and power and just the simplicity of the way that y'all want to go at the problem. There's you guys want to you guys want to do it as efficiently as possible. And, there's not kind of all these, other ideas dangling off. It's a very, very singular type purpose. And you tend to get great results with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, what we do is we're helping people, but we're doing it in a way that is just hasn't been done. But when you think about it, it's really simple and
right.
It's easily, like I said, duplicated, because what we're doing is we're partnering with world-class clinicians all over the United States, and we're giving them their market rate to treat veterans. And so we, like I said, then we uniquely figure out which therapists would be best with the veterans that are coming through our doors, and we link them together, and they're able to get treatment once a week. So, when you think about it, there's a lot more under the hood of what we do.
Uh-huh.
The whole thing go in terms of our partnership with local health.
Right.
But when you look at it from just a broad view, essentially it's pretty simple what we're doing and how we're helping people. And it's something that, like, we really feel like is not only going to change the landscape in the veterans landscape, but like in society in general.
Zach, I mean, we talked about basically that the one thing that stuck out to me with what you're saying was that you basically, you guys look at the veterans that are coming through the door, and then you say, okay, we have this therapist and we think this would be the best suit for them. Is that kind of how it goes?
Exactly. So, these therapists all have different, accreditations,
right,
licenses and things that they do specifically well. And so, when people come through our doors, whether it is that they're dealing with PTSD, whether it's military sexual trauma, whether it's these moral injuries that you're starting to see pop up more and more, from, like, for example, guys who fly drones. And so while they're not directly seeing combat, they're having to do things that are, inside of them, they feel like this internal struggle of what's right and wrong.
Right.
So we call it moral injury. And so there's a lot of different things that people suffer from and that they need help with. And so when we link them up with therapists, we want to link them up with a therapist that's best suited to help them get through whatever it is that they're dealing with.
Yeah. And the other aspect of that too is, therapy is a very personal experience, and you don't always jive with with the first therapist that you may come across. I know
not even the second therapist.
Yeah. And so, I think that's really powerful. The fact that you guys,
and I think that's where we are, we do such a good job in the vetting process in terms of linking people together. That we really, that's like, we highlight that, or I highlight that because, that's where I think that so much attention to detail is put into, who to link them up with, what's best for the veteran, and that we really take all of that into consideration.
Yeah. It's not just a one size fits all type solution.
Yeah.
It's
and that's like the only downfall I will say about, and I think the VA is wonderful, but I think that's the only downfall is they kind of just stick you with who's in your area. And I had a wonderful therapist. She was a very, very nice lady. But she was I would call her more of a positive psych kind of person. So I would say things like super irrational, like, yeah, it's in middle semester. I think this Friday I'm just going to fly to Peru and do DMT in the jungle. And she would be like, you should do that. And I would be like, no, I need you to tell me not to do that. And she'd be like, no, if that's really what you want to do, Thomas, do it. And I was like, no, I just listened to a Joe Rogan podcast and, like, I probably should not do that. And she's like, you should do it. You should do it right now. And I'm like, Jesus, lady. Like, she was so sweet, but I was like, this is just not working for me. I was like, it was just more fun than it was therapy at that point,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look, and I think that's where we're so focused on the uniqueness of each individual and what they need, that I think that's where we kind of separate ourselves in terms of, like I said, that attention to detail, because not every veteran is the same. Not every veteran is dealing with, the same issue. So when they come into our program, we really tailor what we do toward what they need. And I think that's where, while I say our program could potentially be duplicated, I'm not sure that anybody else is going to put the attention to detail like what we do, and, like, really, care about the veterans coming into our program the same way that we do.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, again, it's kind of that personal touch that comes from having been through the process yourself, and knowing, I guess being. Yeah, it's one thing to know about something, and it's another thing to experience something. And I think that's an important distinction to make, especially, when you're talking about things like mix, matching people with therapists, matching people with the appropriate programs, that, that there's no Tom.
I'm a child.
There's no, there really is no substitute for that, having that experience. And I guess kind of knowing how personally, like, on a personal level, how difficult that can be navigating that. So, and I think that's really important, that you can take those experiences and translate them into the experiences that people are walking through your door are going to have, and how you're shaping those experiences.
Right. And also too, like, I think that each veteran, while different, they all want to be treated as individuals.
Right.
Like they all want to be, we all want to know that people care about us, or that people have our best interests at heart. I think that's what we do. Like that's really that's the foundation of what we do. We want veterans to know that we're here for them, and that that we care about them.
Yeah. So when you started, because I know your imprint's all over this Stigma series. How did that come about when you started doing it? And because I've read a few of them, especially the one you guys just posted, and they're very personal, to be honest. And I mean, obviously very interesting, but very, very personal. I read the latest blog post. I think it was 2 or 3 days ago now. Yeah, and it was extremely well written, very, very good, but very personal. And I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. So I would be remiss to say that this was some idea that I came to. Like, we did a partnership with Brandon Stam from Humans of New York. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, and I saw that series and how impactful that was, and how people were drawn to that. So I was like, I would love to replicate that, except for just only veterans and or people that are in the veteran space. Like I did one, Bob Woodruff. Not a veteran, but he went over to Iraq and stuff like that. So, because I really wanted people to hear these stories of veterans, because, everyone always says thank you for your service or blah blah, but I don't think they truly know what they're thanking people for or why we should be grateful. And so, I was like, let's just tell these stories. And so I kind of replicated Brandon's model from Humans in New York. But the thing with Brandon's is what makes, I think, the one that I'm doing different is that Brandon's is a lot of times is just kind of a highlight of, a certain problem that they've had or an issue that they're dealing with. Whereas mine, or ours, I should say, at Headstrong, it's the arc of their story. Like I want people to understand, because especially when it comes to trauma, or when it comes to somebody's story and things that they're dealing with, like this isn't only solely just a one event thing that happened to them and impacted them and then changed their life. Like a lot of times you're seeing what we call old wounds rub against new wounds. So things from your childhood or things that happened to you early on in your life, and then are compounded by your military experience or after you got out of the military. And so, I really wanted to tell the arc of these people's stories and let them know, like, the beginning, the middle, and then where they're at now. And I think there's obviously been a lot of information that comes out with these stories, right? In terms of like people have gone through, and it tells like a real detailed element of that. But I feel like that's really the impactful part of it, is just seeing how they got to the point that they're at now.
Yeah, I think the other thing is people want that complete story. Like you don't want there's something about taking a snapshot out of a story that just seems in some way almost inauthentic. And I think when you do show that whole arc, it tends to at least for me personally. Yeah. I feel like when I know when I see the whole picture, it tends to have a lot more power for me for some reason.
Well, so it also gives you a better understanding, right? So like, I'll say my story or individually. I don't want to speak for anybody else, so I'll just speak about mine. Like, I profiled myself early on because I felt like I felt like in order for me to be able to ask other people to tell their story, like I had to tell my own.
Yeah.
Like it seemed, in what you said in terms of authenticity, like it seemed more authentic for me to be able to reach out and ask people to do this if I did it myself. So I'm only going to speak to mine, but for example, with my story, like when you hear about some of the things I went through early in childhood, it makes more sense as to, why that was compounded when I went through some of the stuff I went in the military or after the fact with the traumatic brain injuries and stuff like that. So, and then why that ultimately led me to therapy, right? So like, that's why not only is there an authenticity piece, like you say, but it's also, it just tells a wider, more broader version of why people get into therapy and why they need help.
Well, yeah. I mean, it gives you your own personal journey, man, to highlight it. And that's, I mean, yeah, I definitely believe that's super important. Jeff and I have talked about that before. I mean, my dad was in my life, but I was raised by a single mother, and as I got older, I believe that a lot of things from my childhood, I was raised in not a poor household, but definitely lower than middle class. And, going through a lot of those things that society itself puts stressors on you, and, trying to overcome that. And then you start compounding it with things when you get older, and, and then, anxiety starts creeping in and stuff. And it's hard to deal with, especially when you just never dealt with it before. It's really the whole monkey on the back kind of thing. And it was hard for me. There were days where like I wasn't getting out of bed, like at all. Like it was rough.
Well, and I think the other really good point you raise is, like it's a lot of times it's the combination of these things. It's not just, I joined the military and something happened there, but it's there's factors beyond just that. Like I said, I that's interesting. That's actually not something in my ignorance that I've actually really had anybody speak about before. So I think that's really fascinating, actually.
Yeah, and like, so it's interesting to hear Thomas say what he said about not being able to get out of bed, because if you don't tell that story, you don't say that right now on this podcast, maybe, or if you didn't know what you know, maybe you would feel like, oh, am I the only one like this is going through this?
Yeah. And
it's funny because I'm listening to you say that, and at the same time, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been
there. Yep.
There was times where I couldn't get out of bed, or like, I can remember 2 years ago, I didn't get out of bed until 6:30 p.m.
I've been there.
And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I so depressed? And I really felt like it was just an issue that I was dealing with. But then, so that's why I think what you guys are doing is so important, because you're normalizing this for people and letting them know and understand that, like, okay, you've been through this as well. So it's like something that we can relate to.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is just that idea of isolating in general. I mean, is that's such a huge, I mean, I think when we interviewed the suicide prevention coordinator at the East Kansas VA, that's one of the things she said, that's probably the most common flag for just about anyone with mental health issues, is that idea that you're isolating yourself, and that's the staying in bed, that's the I'm not going to leave my house, or I can only go to the grocery store at 11 o'clock at night when there's not going to be anyone around, those sorts of things. And I know for me personally, like if the isolating aspect is such, like as I track my mental health moving forward, if somebody invites me to go do something and just for no particular reason, I'm like, I don't feel like doing that. It's really one of those things where I have to step back and say, okay, what else is going on then right now that's making me feel like that? And that's definitely, like, for me, one of my big things. My other ones is like not taking care of myself, whether that's like not eating right, not working out, not taking my medicine, that sort of thing. But yeah, like I said, I think that's a really huge one for most people, that idea of isolating themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a podcast coming up with it's a Casey filmmaker and a director of I don't know what she's a director of, but for autism, and she is a huge mental health stigma advocate, and they're doing like these whole not even a web series, like an actual film series called This Is Me.
I think so.
This is me or something like that. And I'd have to look it up. It's in our notes. And she was texting me and she's like, I really, want to come on and talk to you guys. And I'm going to bring the film director on, and we're going to talk because our movie's releasing in January. And I was like, yeah, sure. Come on. And as she was texting me, she was like, yeah, I've been there before, without me even telling her anything I've gone through. And she was like, I was the one that like couldn't get out of bed days. And she was like, and I would forget the last time I showered and stuff like that. And I was like, do you know how real that is? Like, and like, we're just texting like it's normal because it is, but like if somebody else read that like hadn't talked to anyone, they'd be like, wait, there's other people that do this too. I'm not just like this one person who does. And it's not, man, it's so many people, it's crazy.
That's what it is. It's so important to share stories.
Oh yeah.
So people don't feel so isolated, or that people, and I think that's even a great thing about technology. For as much as people want to say the negatives about technology, like it also helps us to kind of come together and understand what each individual is going through. Or so even, I mean, from a broader view, like I can understand what's going on now a little bit with in China with the protests and stuff
Right.
like that. It's like without that technology, you wouldn't have access to that, right?
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right that you know, I feel like me personally, probably out of the boat, we talk a lot of trash on, you know, social media and the social media age, but like you think about this, you know, probably 10 years ago, we wouldn't even be able to do what we're doing with you right now. You know, the fact that you're halfway across the country and we're shooting a podcast and, you know, we got video of each other. It's like, there's definitely, for all the drawbacks, there's just as many positive things about it.
100%. And I think that's what this was intentionally. I'd like to think like this. A lot of this stuff was intentionally, you know, wanted to be used for good. And the way that humans indulge in this stuff, we obviously took it a little too far.
Yeah, I mean,
we tend to do.
We all have dualistic approaches to everything.
You know, it's just it was. I think initially supposed to be used for stuff like this, where we can all relate to one another and like have a better understanding of what people are going through.
Well, Matt, I know you're a busy guy, man, and I know you have to go soon. In closing, is there anything else you want to say about Headstrong and maybe wrap it up for us?
You know, I just want to say, as someone who's gone through the program, outside of the fact that I work here, I'm not even like right now. I just want to speak about someone who's gone through the program. Right, this is life changing. What we provide, what we're doing for people, the care with which we're handling each individual person, we're changing lives. And I know that because I hear these stories. You know, I talk to people and going through it myself, I can say that. So to anybody who is maybe on the fence about getting help, I wanted to reach out. I really implore you to do that because what we do saves lives, and you know, I can attest to that more so than anyone. And you know, outside of this, look, we're always grateful for people who want to get involved with our program financially or spread awareness and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, what our foundation is and what it's always been is about the veteran and about helping people and about, you know, impacting veterans' lives. So if you would like to know more about what we do, please go to getheadstrong.org. You can follow us on Instagram at getheadstrong, Twitter at Headstrong Proj, and the Headstrong Project on Facebook. And I think you'll have a better understanding of what we do if you really look into under the hood of what we do, and you hear these stories and you get to know, you know, the kind of the foundational level of like who we're helping, what we're doing. I think it'll help people understand why this is so necessary and impactful.
Well, we just want to say thank you so much for you know, taking an hour out of your day to come on with us. This has been really enjoyable for us, and you know, we hope you guys continue to do just great things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
No, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it, and hopefully we can collab more in the future, man. I really enjoyed this a lot.
Absolutely, guys.
All right,
everybody. Hey, that was Matt McCoy from the Headstrong Project. Make sure you look them up at the website and the social media they gave out. Always, you can find us at the Kensington Corner and the Kensington C1 on Twitter. Have a good night, guys.